So I'm reading again from Restoring Sanity by Margaret Wheatley. We've been talking about being an island of sanity for the last couple of weeks. And we find ourselves talking about kindness this week, and so here's what she has to say about kindness. Kindness is an offering to others, a way of extending yourself that asks nothing in return. It is kind to be present. It is kind to be open and curious. It is kind to be respectful. It is a great kindness to keep our judgments, biases, and opinions to ourselves, to refrain from inserting them into our work or allowing them to distort our relationships. And we are being kind to ourselves when we commit to clearing our filters. Others benefit, but so do we. Life gets much more enjoyable and easeful. Houston Smith, the superb student of the world's great religions, was asked in an interview with Bill Moyers in 1996 to name what was common among the many faiths he had studied. Smith replied, "It sounds a bit simplistic, but they're all saying, could you just be a little kinder to one another?"
Because you are God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, clothe yourselves with heartfelt compassion, with kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Bear with one another. Forgive whatever grievances you have against one another. Forgive in the same way God has forgiven you. Above all else, put on love, which binds the rest together and makes them perfect.
Would you pray with me, please? Divine One, as we seek to become a place of safety and of rest, a place of sanctuary and growth, a place of hope and courage, as we seek these things, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of each of our hearts be filled with your wisdom and your insight. Amen. So as I said, we've been talking about being an island of sanity based on Margaret Wheatley's book. She said an island of sanity is a possibility, a place of possibility and a place of refuge for people in the midst of the craziness of the world right now. She said it's a place that's isolated from and safe from the destructive behaviors and policies and dynamics that are going on out there. And she's very clear that to be an island of sanity means that we need to nurture certain qualities. And those three qualities that she lifts up are generosity, kindness, and creativity. And you may wonder why these three, why not intelligence and compassion and justice and love? Well, she says those are all really good and we like all of those things, but these three, generosity, kindness, and creativity, are essential in creating trusting relationships that are without judgment, without bias, where every person is welcomed, where every person's perspective is valued. And so we've been talking about generosity for the last couple of weeks, and I'm moving on to kindness this week. And maybe it seems like a no-brainer. At least it should be a no-brainer. And I'm pretty sure that all y'all are really kind people. on a general basis. I think you all would have passed my kids' time test with Mike here, right? But it's one of those things that we forget to think about. The answers to those questions with the kids probably came naturally to all of us, but I think there's something important about actually being conscious of when someone is being kind to us and when there is an opportunity to be kind. So part of your, well, let me back up. So the scripture that Julie read from Colossians, even Paul is saying kindness is important in having a community that's cohesive, that's safe to be in. Kindness and compassion and humility and patience and gentleness he lifts up as qualities that as God's people we need to work on manifesting in our lives, right? So Paul's right in there with kindness too. So part of the homework that I gave you, if you read the email I sent out, and if you don't get my emails, this is easy, you can think something up, was one, to pay attention this week to when someone was kind to you. Can anybody remember a moment, want to share a moment that they recognized when someone was kind? Sure.
When my coworkers left the bank with your local chocolate.
Oh, so for someone, gosh, that is really kind. So a coworker left Lindor chocolates on her desk. So, Julie? Oh, I thought you had your hand up, sorry. Anybody else? A moment, someone was kind. Carol?
Yes, I was at a restaurant and where you stand in line and place your order. And the young man that was behind the counter in the midst of taking my order, he said to me, "Oh my, how your colors coordinate. Look at that dusty rose shirt." I said to him, I said, "You know, I don't get too many compliments." I can't tell you what that means to me. Thank you so much.
Yeah, how sweet. Apparently you should wear dusty rose a lot.
Yes.
That's a good color for you, Carol. But how nice that he said something.
It really
Absolutely. I saw another hand over here. Yeah.
Several times this week I've been going over to the AEW bookstore, and invariably when I'm carrying something heavy, somebody will hold the door for me. Some gentleman wanted me to go first, and then he realized that it was better for him to go first and hold the door. But it's partly because I'm going to be up there in years. So.
Well, let's hope it's not just because you're getting up there in years. Let's hope somebody is being kind and holding the door because that's what they do, is that they're kind. It's something simple like that, absolutely. Beth?
Well, yesterday Annie and I were at the park, and a little girl, I'm telling you, she would have been 7. She says to me, "I like your clothes."
Oh, so for the 7-year-old who said, "I like your clothes" at the park yesterday, that's sweet. Very kind. Who else has something? You know, Devon's not here with us this morning because she's got a craft booth over at the Chainsaw Festival at River Bend. But you know, she texted me yesterday and she said, "You know, I've got this booth going on," and maybe it was 2 days ago, and she said, "But if you've got some literature for Sacred Journeys, I'd be happy to put it out." And so I put something together real quick, and she came and picked it up, and she's got it out. Just a simple kindness, thinking about all of us here. Mike?
Speaking of groceries, I shop groceries like every day, but I'll be in line and I'll have more items than somebody behind me with less, and I'll let them go first, or vice versa. If somebody sees me with like a couple things in my hands, they'll say, "Go ahead, go through the checkout aisle first." So little things like that.
Yeah, so for the times when someone's let you go first because you had fewer items, if they let you go first, so nice kindnesses. Joy?
I don't know if all of you are familiar with Aldi's, but when you go there, you have to put a quarter to get the card. And I had a woman stop me and she said, "You can have mine." And I was transfer that kindness
Pass
over
that.
to the next person.
Nice, nice. So for the kindness of sharing a cart.
Yeah.
So, let's not look at it as ripping off Valley Ellis. Look at that as being kind. So, can you think of an opportunity you had? So Joanne kind of led us there. You had to be kind. Did you pay more attention because it was asked of you? And did you find a moment, opportunity that arose? Sue?
Speaking of the grocery store, I was behind the elderly man. Anyway, he was buying what looked like breakfast treats. And he was trying his credit card, didn't work. Tried a different credit card, didn't work. Then he opened his wallet, didn't have enough money. So I just had my wallet out already. And I said, here, just put this on my bill. And he was unbelievably appreciative. Oh, can you come over for donuts too? Sure.
Well, and thank you for that, not only kindness, but generosity. Please.
I arrived at the sub counter about the same time as the person that was behind me, and then there started to be all these complicated questions. And the woman was making all of our orders, she had both our orders. Somehow this woman ended up in front of me, and she couldn't hear what was being asked, and so I was just kind of helping her along and helping her towards the checkout so she could get done, so I didn't get my order too. But just kind of, I helped her out and hoped that.
Sure, just the kindness of helping someone to hear and to figure out what's going on as you're making yourself sandwiches at the counter. And when you could have been annoyed and unhappy because they weren't going fast enough or they weren't hearing enough or they had too many questions, to be kind instead. Sure.
When I went to fill the gas yesterday, I usually go into the store, and when I opened up the door a little bit, I could see there was 3 gentlemen that were about ready to come out, and I just left it open for them so they could walk out.
Sure. Very simple things as far as holding doors or leaving doors open. So, Missy.
I had a new neighbor move in across the hall from me this weekend, and she has a very young toddler, and she was struggling with a lot of people. And I happened to be cooking dinner early, and I offered them a warm meal so they could continue their efforts. And gave the little babies some toys to play with. So made their day a little bit easier, I hope.
Absolutely. So kindness to a new neighbor and generosity to a new neighbor. That's a nice way to start off moving into a place, isn't it? So, did you ever find an opportunity where you knew what the kindness was to do, but you weren't quite feeling like you wanted to do it? What makes us hold back?
Fear,
Fear of what?
rejection,
Rejection? Okay. Somebody's not going to like your kindness?
Or be angered by it.
Or be angered by it?
Yeah.
Or you might get hurt.
You make
Feel
it,
like you might get hurt.
oh, okay. Feel like you might get hurt?
So
Clarice?
our scenario with Mike in the wheelchair, I know that, well, I've learned through some people's experiences that you cannot assume what a person who you see as disabled might want or not want. You need to ask.
True, good point. So the scenario with Mike in the wheelchair, sometimes it's nice to ask if you can perform a kindness for someone. Point well taken. And so in those cases when we're unsure, again, asking itself may be the kindness, right? Right, right. In this case, he didn't have, but okay. Ron?
I had an experience like that at Trigger, where I came out the door and there was a gentleman struggling, he was trying to put a walker on the, what was it, I guess I almost a riding cart in his trunk. And he had a walker too, and he was struggling with the thing, and I went over to him, I said, can I help you? He said, I don't want any help.
And sometimes people don't, but the kind thing is to ask, right? It's not a reflection on you. I let somebody put a 50-pound bag of salt salt in the trunk of my car at Menards, and he promptly picked it up and pulled off the little end of it. So I had an open bag of salt in the back of my car at Menards. But he was so trying to be kind, and I give him credit for that, right?
I was just gonna say fatigue and then like someone else just was that.
What was the second?
Like, so fatigue. for one
Fatigue,
thing,
yes.
And then the other one is a buildup of resentment. Like I will oftentimes help my coworkers because they didn't get all their work done.
Right, so
And then
if you're helping your coworkers,
And it's like enabling too, right? Like you can't enabling them to not get their work done because I'm always
sure,
doing it for them.
sure. So enabling is a whole nother conversation. And kindness to be kindness is done without expectation of receiving something in return. Like,
Judgment. A few years ago, I happened to pull off the side of the road in the middle of winter by Northwestern Building in 27th Street. There was a gentleman in a really big SUV, kind of run down, and he was pushing it, pulling the wheel and pushing it and struggling. So I pulled over and I asked him if he needed help. He's like, yeah, any help could it be? And you're careful because of harm, and you also want to make sure you're doing something right, you're not going to get taken advantage of. So I start pushing it. What do I notice in the back? He's got a pregnant wife and 2 kids. So I helped him push it around to the parking lot of the Northwestern Building. I said, you want me to call, AAA or anything? He's like, no, it's good. I appreciate you helping me, or we would have been out here you were the first person that stopped.
right.
So that kind of kindness, you judge it, and intuition sometimes helps. Other times you just do it.
Hey, in our culture today, we're conditioned to be suspicious.
Right.
To be overly careful, to not butt in because somebody might reject us, because we're also conditioned to be overly independent and not accept help
Yeah, I'm good.
from other people. And so it's created kind of this divide, and so good for you for getting past that initial judgment or fear or whatever in that
But
situation.
you still have that instinct, that fight or flight.
Absolutely,
You're just
fight or flight.
like,
It's
something's going on, but then you realize, oh, this person, this family is
Yeah.
really
Well,
big.
from little on, right, it's stranger danger.
Right.
Isn't that the,
We're conditioned to,
somebody doesn't look like us, somebody doesn't act like us, somebody we don't know, we're conditioned to be afraid. And so to start to condition ourselves to be kind begins to get past, as Margaret Wheatley pointed out, past those judgments and those biases. And yes, there are all these things that stop us, that if we're aware of, we can choose, if we desire, to say, oh, I know why I'm not doing it in this instance, and we can choose to make a different choice. And sometimes we are just tired and exhausted, and we don't have what it takes to give something else. There are times by the end of the day where I'm all out of kindness, I'm all out of nice, right? And I'll tell Julie, I'm sorry, but I'm just all out of nice right now. And there's something about naming and claiming it. So here's something we don't talk about, which is being kind to ourselves. So sometimes I need to be kind to myself and name and claim that I'm just tired and beat and cranky and hungry, and I should not be around other people. But, so what do we need sometimes? We need space. We need time off. We need playtime. We need drumming time. We need, I don't know, whatever y'all need. Mental health days. We need a glass of wine. We need to claim a kindness for ourselves occasionally. And the other kindness that none of you actually touched on when I talked about a kindness done for you or a kindness you did for someone else was someone within your family. We don't often think about it because we take the other person for granted. And it's not to say we're not kind to each other, but we don't label it in that category of now I've been kind, right? Or I should be. Here's an opportunity to be kind. So, it's a Jesuit historian by the name of John O'Malley, who told a story of an old Jesuit guy who gave him the 3 rules they had laid down for living in a Jesuit community together. And the 3 rules were, you are not God, this is not heaven, and don't be a jerk. The 3rd one was actually a little saltier, apparently, and it was a synonym for a donkey. So, while those first 2 I think would make really good sermons, it's the 3rd one that struck me for this one. Don't be a jerk. It should be like number 1, right up there with rules for being kind. We have sadly so many people who are willing to be jerks these days. And the distance of social media, email, texting, TikTok and tweeting and whatever else people do has enabled so many folks to be jerks. And we need to reel that in and start thinking about being kind and not putting negative, jerky energy out into the world. Because none of us wants to add to that. We want to add kind energy, and generous energy, and creative energy into the world. Do you expect kindness? When you go out into the world, does anybody expect kindness anymore? Sue does. A couple of people say, all right, I get like 5 hands, or that's a problem. How many of you expect kindness when you walk in here? I'm hoping the hands go up, or I'm in really big trouble and we have a lot to work on. That's what it should be. You should be able to expect kindness and generosity here. And that's how we begin this island of sanity. But then the key is to be fortified by it here and to carry it out into the craziness of the world and to have those little pockets of positive, kind energy that begins to change things. So, real quick, 3 things to nurture this, right? 1, everybody wants to matter. Everybody wants to hear a kind word. If you have a compliment to give it. Everybody wants to feel appreciated. Everybody wants to be told that their dusty rose shirt looks good with their complexion. Everybody matters, wants to know that they matter. 2, I have no idea what 2 was anymore. That's really not good. Be kind. For just 2 seconds. Be aware. That was it. Just be aware of when you can be kind, of why you might not be being kind, of people who are kind to you, and be grateful for that. And the 3rd one was think of kindness as a muscle, as something that you need to exercise in order to grow strong in that quality, in that trait. And exercise that kindness muscle. Or consider it a superpower. You know, Paul says, clothe yourself with kindness. Put on your kindness cape when you go out into the world and make it your superpower to be kind in a world that does not expect kindness. Amen.